I was like, you know what? This is an accounting approach to a behavioral problem.
Hello, welcome to the Better Outcome Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Each episode, we bring you a conversation with leaders across the healthcare industry, exploring topics ranging from new treatment techniques and interventions to novel service delivery methods and business models. And now your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab Practice Solutions, a leader in patient engagement and retention strategy. Let's explore the possibilities of a new healthcare.
Well, hello again. Welcome to another episode of the Better Outcome Show. I'm your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab Practice Solutions. And currently, at the time of this recording, it is into the final quarter of 2023. And that means that, once again, we are doing at Rehab Practice Solutions, we are doing our annual survey of clinicians. This year is going to be in the musculoskeletal and rehabilitation space. We're looking specifically at virtual service delivery and technology implementation within the physical rehab space. So if you're a practitioner, clinician, or somebody who works in that space, and you've got some insights to share around the use of maybe telehealth or technology in the delivery of physical therapy services or something like that, head on over to rehabilipracticesolutions.com. And we've got the survey there on the home page. It will be open until probably, I'd imagine, first week of December or so, when we shut it down for the holidays and data analytics and all the nerdy stuff that happens after we get the input. So rehabilipracticesolutions.com, click on the link there, give us a little bit of insight and feedback around technology in healthcare, and thanks. All right. This week, we are diving into the world of behavioral change, behavioral psychology, specifically around the area of weight loss in specifics. So my guest this week is Dr. Valerie Evans. She's a behavioral psychologist, behavioral analyst, and she is the founder of a weight loss app called No Way that is based, as she says, not on the accounting method or an accounting method of weight loss and health, but really on a behavioral approach where you're looking at really the underlying reasons for certain behaviors and lifestyle habits and how to change them for the long term, rather than counting calories and inputting that into a spreadsheet, basically. So we had a good conversation around just the basic principles of behavioral psychology, applied behavioral analytics, and then we talked about weight loss and the behavioral interplay there, some of the behavioral factors that are affecting things like late night eating and the like. And then we talked about the app, its development, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully you find this episode entertaining, enlightening. I know I like talking with folks that are in the behavioral psychology space. It reminds me of the times when I was a consultant for the Department of Behavioral Health here in Georgia, doing some work on an integrated clinical support team, and just some of the conversations that I had with some of my great colleagues that were ABAs. So hopefully you find this entertaining, enlightening, and you walk away with some insights about just instituting and making positive changes in lifestyle habits and behaviors that you've got in your day-to-day. Maybe even a little bit of insight around app development and launching an app in this space. So without further ado, here's Dr. Valerie Evans talking about taking a behavioral approach to healthy weight and weight loss. Well, hey, Dr. Valerie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing all right. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to talk with you about No Way and using behavioral change and behavioral modification in the area of weight loss and healthy lifestyles. But before we dive into that too much, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what got you to doing what you're doing now with No Way.
All right, I'm an educational psychologist and board certified behavior analyst. And behavior analysis, for those who aren't familiar, is an approach that looks at the interconnection between responses and their contexts. Behavior analysis is taking the point of view of an objective observer
Okay.
and looking at kind of factual information and collecting the variables that are at play. And it's also a very optimistic approach to psychology, because the assumption that behavior analysis always begins with is that there is something that we can use as a starting point and grow and influence into that something that's more useful for the individual. If we're talking about weight loss, it's something that's more of a helpful habit, or even just evolving some patterns of responding into something that's more useful and consistent with where we want our lives to go. And I am also a weight loss app user, or former user. And as an adult, I had a realization while I was becoming very frustrated with the budgeting and the documenting. Being on my phone all the time really became intolerable for me. And I was like, you know what? This is an accounting approach to a behavioral problem.
Yeah.
And and I'm a behavior analyst, so why am I putting up with this? And it's really not fair, the way diet programs are set up, to have a restriction and expect users to follow it without really having a how. How do you do this?
Yeah.
How does this fit into your life? You just kind of like lay it over your life, and it kind of takes it over with all the demands. So I'm a little, I guess, feeling bad when I feel like a failure at like something like a weight loss program. And then I had this, realization that I really don't have to do it this way. And I became inspired that other people are using these programs and feeling the same way. And um, you know what? Let's redefine it. Let's do it the behavioral way, actually, you know, um, solve the problem with something that we already know in behavioral science to be effective.
Yeah. Yeah. You laid a lot out there that we want to unpack here for sure. Like, I've never really heard it described that way, but it makes a lot of sense. Like this idea of like an accounting method for a health and weight loss is like you're going to put it's just calories in, calories out, and we don't care how you get there. You just have to have, a calorie deficit at the end of the day or something like that. And it really doesn't take into account a lot of times like just the behavioral context of somebody, like what's they're going on in their daily life or their routine. And they know in the back of their minds, like, I got to have this deficit, or I've got to cut these carbs out, or this protein or fat or whatever it is. But it's very much like numbers driven. So when we talk about applying behavioral science to that, what are some of the things that we do or that you do differently, taking that approach versus just a simple, normal American is 2,500 calories, you're going to be on a 2,000 calorie diet or whatever?
Hmm. Well, the restriction programs, it's really where you put your attention, to answer your
Yeah.
question. So, rather than attending to this rule and making sure that, you're following it and ending your day with your, green check mark or blue dot or your beautiful graph, um, rather than attending to the numbers, we're attending to how your body feels. And it begins with the assumption, first of all, that the user is an expert on their day. They know what their patterns are. And it might just be a matter of taking a moment to zoom out and really notice and recognize those patterns that are maintaining this weight that you are interested in changing. And so you're attending to how you feel. So how your body feels, like, that's as simple as, am I feeling satisfied when I go to bed, or am I feeling like I'm a little bit full? And it also requires attending to like mood or arousal levels. When we're feeling tired, everything's harder.
Yeah.
We're really not going to have the day that we wanted to have because everything's like kind of uphill when you're tired. So becoming aware of all the variables and then using behavior analytic techniques to create some distance between you and your patterns and provide an opportunity to do something differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. I've done a little bit of work with some behavioral analysts in some of my consulting with Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities here in Georgia. And it seems like behavioral analysts are really good at coming up with, I mean, their reports had data and statistics and all this kind of stuff. To me, as an outside, I was working on something totally different. As an outside observer, it seems like, holy cow, this is a lot. And it can seem really intimidating for a user that's really trying to maybe just get into a healthier, maybe a healthier weight, or they're trying to promote some positive lifestyle habits. Like, is there, can it be intimidating to be like, oh, I've got to like analyze my behavior and figure out how that's going to happen? What are some of the tricks of the trade that we can do to kind of make it not so scary and maybe more approachable?
Well, I've never heard behavior analysis described that way, so that's interesting. And I like getting the raw reaction. It's really, I know it's an intimidating phrase, behavior analyst, but it just begins with recognizing some patterns. And one of the things that's really super quick and easy that creates some distance between you and some habit that you're trying to break is just rule breaking, just doing it differently just one time, a non-commitment. Let me see how I feel if I just like don't eat anything after dinner and I just skip the snack and go to bed. Like, how is that going to make me feel? Let me have that experience, and I'm not committing to it. It's not going to be like I'm never going to have snack before bedtime again, but let me just see how it affects me. How do I feel? um you know did I go to sleep better? Did I wake up hungrier and enjoy breakfast more? And have an opportunity to have that experience, and it could work with non-food things too, like making an effort to connect with people better and noticing when maybe if you're trying to lose weight, maybe you find yourself thinking about other people's bodies, which isn't helpful.
Yeah.
And making more of an effort to connect there. But the whole goal of behavior analysis is to understand how habits are actually solutions. They're
Yeah.
solving a problem. If all habits are adaptive, even if they're not helpful, they solved a problem for you. And that's why they're a habit, because you practice them over and over because they're effectively solving your problem. And that's called a functional approach. And it's also part of the app where users look at some type of problematic response they experienced that day and try to identify the solution that it was like the problem it was actually solving. And from there, you can identify an alternative response. And once you identify that, then you just need to try it, try as a rule breaking exercise. Let me try this instead. I do tend to go crazy before I go to bed, and I do have some trouble sleeping. Let me just try skipping that, instead, and decide that I want to get cozy on the couch, and that's going to be how I'm going to spend my evening or read a book or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something there that's, I think, very simple to say, but super, super profound, which is like the habit is the solution. I was at a opioid addiction conference a while back, and one of the speakers said, like, the addiction is not the problem, like the addiction is the solution. And really it's understanding the driver behind what led this person to seek out, in this case, opioids or whatever it is. It's not because they like, it's just a bad thing that they started doing. I mean, maybe there's a small segment of people that get like chemically dependent or something like that, but for the most for the majority of people, like these habits are their way of either filling a need or blocking a pain or whatever it is, and driving down to the root is really where change happens. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
When it comes specifically to like health and weight loss, I mean, obviously there's tons of things that you could look at, right? Like it could be sleep, it could be exercise, it could be diet. Like, is there one of those factors that you find is more successful? Like, let's look at this first because that's an easy one for people to kind of get on board with, and then once we kind of do a little rule breaking here and see how it works, if we feel better, then we can move on to something else. Or kind of what's the approach that you find most helpful in this kind of situation?
I think the first goal is to recognize
Okay.
what's going on. And um I really like this idea of visualizing your day, like zoomed out. Like if you could be an objective observer, like seeing the players and the context and the variables, and recognizing how this domino started when you were engaging in some negative thinking and allowed it to get carried away, or something like that. And then you also have internal cueing that leads to. So one of the early recommendations in the program is to eat more fruits and vegetables. And, that's common
Yeah.
recommendation of any weight loss program because they're healthy and because they're high in fiber and low in calories. But the reason no way users eat more fruits and vegetables is because of the way it makes your belly feel. And it provides a cue to internally that you feel different, and that feeling different provides some behavioral momentum that you can have this motivation to continue responding in a way that is going to continue making you feel good.
Yeah. So like little like rule breaker, little experiments, and then you're kind of taking that in, right? Like the result of that, and then they're trying to internalize it over time. How much of it too, like is I don't know if you've probably read the book because you're in this field. That book, Tiny Habits. I can't remember who wrote it. Um, I think
Oh,
he's a
Atomic
behaviorist.
Habits.
No, Tiny Habits.
Oh,
I
Tiny
think
Habits.
I can't remember the guy's name. He is a PhD. Maybe he's in that same field, but he talks about like flossing teeth, and he's like, so the tiny habit is I wanted to floss my teeth every day, so the tiny habit I came up with was I'm gonna floss one tooth every morning, and like one tooth became two teeth, and then whatever, like it's not this huge giant I'm going to lose 30 pounds, or I'm going to, whatever it is, exercise 5 times a week and watch what I eat and be better at sleeping. Like starting with the tiny things, like, is this the tiny experience of the rule breaking kind of fitting in that same vein, like where you're trying to take this thing that could be really, really intimidating, and making it very, very approachable?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's interesting that the flossing, because I also I struggled to start flossing,
Yeah.
right? I don't think anyone like really
Yeah. No one enjoys
naturally
it.
strong. And at some point I just realized that I thought it was gross. I didn't like touching the floss after it did the flossing. And yeah, like from there I was able to figure out how to do it so I didn't have that reaction. And then I was able to contact the natural reinforcement of having a super clean mouth and using the mouthwash and feeling it go through my teeth. And it was just a natural reinforcement that's going to maintain it. Um, Actually, brushing and flossing after a meal is one of the strategies in No
Oh,
Way.
okay.
And we use it as not a behavior we're trying to like increase, but as a cueing that when your mouth is super clean, you tend to want to keep it that way. And anybody, when
Oh,
we brush our
yeah.
teeth, we don't like go eat something right away because we want to maintain the way it feels, and, you know,
Yeah.
we have fresh breath and all that. But yeah, the shaping, starting small and growing into something bigger is a big part of the program. And there's it's you want to the approach is just very natural, and we're constantly looking for the natural reinforcement and trying to contact that as much as possible. I was talking to a physical trainer, and we were talking about how when you start a new training program, a new workout program, there's, you're all excited and want to do it, but then eventually, you're gonna have your clothes on, you're gonna be at the gym, and you're just like not gonna feel like it. And
Yeah.
you're gonna be stuck there with that problem. Like, do I force myself and kind of hate it? Or how do I initiate this in a positive way? And it's really contacting natural reinforcers. It's not the big, I want to lose this much weight. It's the immediate, how does this response right now make me feel? I'm going to feel like, that really great tired feeling that you can only get when you work out, or I'm going to have a better night's sleep, or, working out makes me feel like a healthy person. And I like the way that feels. And, and that's really the key is having immediate reinforcement that's natural because it comes out of the activity.
Yeah, as opposed to this like long tail outcome that might or might not come true, right?
Right.
Well, in that same vein, then, like, exercising is a habit, eating healthy is a habit. Like, so I feel like there's two sides of this coin, right? There's like picking up new habits, but then stopping other habits, like maybe stopping your midnight snack or whatever it is. Like, and they both come with their challenges. But when it comes specifically to stopping, like, let's say we see this habit as detrimental or not helping us achieve our goals, like, why is stopping that habit such a struggle for most people?
Well, really it's the questions that we ask,
Okay.
that you want to ask the question, how is this habit helpful to me? How does it fit into the web of my daily life? Like, what is cueing it to happen? And then what does it inspire that happens next? Like, why is it so essential to me? Or how is it so essential to me? And that you need to recognize that habits, you can't just like drop a habit. It's not like you can just delete it, and there's a space there. There's that unmet need now. So what am I going to do instead? And it needs to be as readily accessible and as reinforcing, or more so, than the habit you're trying to get rid of. um, I was talking to someone about like going to bed earlier, and that's something I think a lot of adults want. They want to
Yeah.
get an earlier start on their day, and they want to feel rested and really be as productive as possible. And going to bed earlier, like, it's not really a matter of why can't I get myself to go to bed earlier. You have to ask the question, what do I do in the evening that I value? What do I do with my time, and why is it important to me, and what role does it play in my life? And because when I go to bed earlier, I'm going to be getting that extra sleep, but I'm going to be exchanging it for whatever I was doing in the evening that I was finding important enough to stay up for. So thinking about the ecology of our responses is really how you want to approach habit change.
Yeah. So not looking at like an isolated behavior pattern or behavior thing, but looking at it kind of within the context of your life, your situation, what's going on. I like that. The idea of like, why am I staying up late? What am I going to be exchanging if I go to bed?
Right. Yeah.
um, well, tell us a little bit about the app itself or the program itself. Then, like, um, onboarding. Like, how have you obviously, like, let's first start with like what decided to make or what made you decide that this is going to be an app and not like um maybe a something that you deliver in a clinic or via online web calls or Zoom calls or something like that. Like, why was an app attractive? Was it just because everybody's using diet apps and you're like, we're going to make something better?
Probably. Yeah, I never really stopped to consider another solution. I was using diet apps, and you know, I just I like the convenience of the app,
Uh-huh.
and it's a nice platform for acquiring new information in interactive and bite-sized ways that when you download the app, the there's little bite-sized information. There's like a lot of ways to engage with it, where there's like a daily question and some behavior analytic information that goes with that. But to really be successful, you would engage with these interactive behavior analysis content modules, and
Okay.
they're really short, and there's not too many of them. But the idea is that you have all the information about your situation that you already need. And what is causing the frustration with your attempts to make this change is some lack of information on how to go about that. And if you can change your point of view to something that's more objective, that is noticing which variables are important, and how things are interconnected, and how habits are adaptive, then you can make the best decisions for you based on that. So like something like rule breaking, which is like the very first thing that users are asked to do, that I'm not telling you which rules to break. You have to find them in your life, and it's not hard. Once you notice one rule, you'll notice others and others. And then at the end of each day, there's an opportunity to reflect on how your day went. And those reflection questions, you review and write in the answers or select your responses. And the idea is that you think about the rules you broke, you respond to some questions that are meant to maintain a positive mood, and then you engage with some questions that are specifically targeting your motivation, so that you can stay engaged with how you want your daily life to change, without making it like this really big New Year's resolution type
Yeah.
thing. And it's just your daily life, and tomorrow's a new day. And if something went wrong today, that's a learning experience. It's all part of the change process. You're not failing. It's part of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a super big thing for, especially for anything like behavioral change in general, but like weight loss and something like that, where it can feel like people feel guilty if they, they had this goal. Maybe it was not going to be to eat their midnight snack or whatever, and then they do, and now they feel guilty. They feel like a failure. Like this idea of it's just a blip on the radar, right? It's a data point now that we're going to use later in the change. I think it's very, very helpful. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the all or nothing thinking. um, we have in behavior analysis, there's something called a differential reinforcement of other behavior, DRO. And the whole idea is that you're reinforced if you avoid doing this one thing. And that's what diet apps are about. You get your sticker or your check mark or your graph or whatever if you can maintain this, calorie allotment or points or whatever you're doing. But then you find yourself in a situation where you're like really hungry, and you decide to like have a second slice of pizza. I'm always going to pizza as my examples because that's like my most craved food. It's just
Yeah.
like
I
the
mean, who
best
doesn't
food
like a
to
good
me.
slice of pizza?
It's just universally understood. And then your day, from there, your day is your diet app is not happy with you, and
Yeah.
it's not gonna give you that thing that you were supposed to earn today. So you find yourself in this situation where you are very hungry because you've been trying to do 1,300 calories for the last week. And you're also dealing with this feeling of failure, and even mature adults, that's, something that doesn't feel great. Now you're stuck with that. And, what, how could how is this situation setting you up for success? It's like, a really bad state to be in. So it becomes like this very rigid path you're on, and that can very readily derail,
Yeah.
at the slightest, hiccup.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious about the app itself. So like how many users have you had on the go through the program or through the app, and kind of like success stories that you've seen? Like I'm sure you've got the data on that kind of stuff, but um, like what kind of reception have you seen in the app itself?
Well, the app is brand new. It just went up, and we're actually using our beta testers to
Okay.
develop more functionality for version 2. And then when version 2 comes out, that's when I'm going to start advertising and let everybody know about it.
Okay.
So we're not quite at that point yet, but I'm very excited
Pre-launch
to
phase, yeah.
get. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of like a soft launch where you can download No Way from Android or Apple right now. Um, but we haven't been acquiring the user base just yet. We've been trying to tweak it so it's very polished and has as much functionality as possible.
Cool deal. Um,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So, what's the timeline then for like the actual launch date for No Way?
Well, it is out there. It's available now, but version 2 will be available for diet season, right around the
Okay.
holidays when everybody's like, I need
Going
a break
into
from feeling this.
Thanksgiving, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. I don't want this season to be complete torture. So that's where No Way can help for
Yeah,
sure.
awesome, cool deal. Well, Dr. Evans, thanks so much for being on the show. I think I know what you're going to say, but if there's um, one or two main points that you'd want a listener to walk away with, maybe like a single thing that we can take away and do right now in our daily lives to whatever habit it is that we're looking at addressing, or lifestyle we're looking at addressing, what would it be?
Well, it would be it's first of all, it's not your fault that you're struggling, and the first step is always to recognize the patterns, and that just empowers you to change them.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool deal. Well, where can people find out more about you, your work? No Way, I guess it's spelled no and then way, Weigh. And that's on
Mhm.
Android and the iOS store. But where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
Noa.com, and we
Okay.
have blog posts too that describe more about the approach and changing your point of view. And we're also on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. Cool deal. We'll link to all that in the show notes. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Okay, thank you so much. This was really fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Valerie Evans talking about taking a behavioral psychology approach to weight loss. Listening back to the episode, I think obviously this is one of those areas and one of those topics that has a lot of application across, life and business and personal and all of that, not just the weight loss aspect. One of the things that she said during our conversation that made me think specifically about like interpersonal conflict, maybe, or managing people, is the whole idea of like taking a step back as an impartial third party observer to a situation. Now, obviously, when it comes to making lifestyle changes or implementing some kind of behavioral change, or changing a behavior when it comes to maybe eating or diet or something like that, obviously that takes its own separate. It can definitely be applied that way, but then using that technique as a way to modulate our response in a lot of ways, or maybe not even the initial response, but when evaluating interactions or the quality of decisions and et cetera, et cetera. If we can kind of take a step back as a non-judgmental third party observer to the situation as a whole, it allows us to look at maybe our coworker or a subordinate, whoever we're having this exchange with, more empathetically, or from a position of wanting to understand, or like curiosity as a like, why might this person, looking at the totality of the circumstances without my emotions being involved in it, what might cause Rafi to act this way in this situation or something like that. It's a very, very helpful tool in that regard as well. Not just why am I, late night snacking or something like that. I think these principles have applications across our various roles, contexts, et cetera, in life. So that was one of the takeaways for me. And then the other one was the idea of making little changes, like tiny rule breaking, and then seeing how that works, seeing how that experiment works, and then internalizing it or working it more and more. So instead of trying to think of this idea of like, I'm going to make this giant, huge change, starting small, like baby steps or whatever, and then testing as you're going, like gathering data. It's not just about making changes and hoping you're in the right direction, but doing a rule break, a small change here, gathering data on that. How's that making me feel? Is it making it worse? Is it making it better? Am I moving in the right direction? And then readjusting as necessary, so that you're not facing down this huge Mount Everest of a problem, which can be very intimidating, but then also it makes it much more manageable and easy, really, in your mind to make a small little change here and a small little change there, see how I feel, and then if it works, keep doing it great. It's kind of like the idea of, I think I mentioned it on the show before, a book that I read years ago called Tiny Habits, and he talks about like flossing your teeth is the example. He's like, instead of saying I'm going to floss my teeth every day, twice a day, I'm just going to floss one tooth is his tiny habit that he starts. And obviously when you get in there, you're like, well, no one just flosses one tooth, right? You got the floss out, you're looking in the mirror, you're going to start starting small, or like push-ups. Instead of saying I want to do 100 push-ups, that's my goal, saying I'm going to start with one push-up a day. And then obviously there's the physical capacity thing, like nobody can just wake up and do 100 push-ups, but then there's the mental thing as well. Like, okay, I'm just going to do one here. Okay, that one was easy. I'm going to do another one and another one and another one. And they end up building over time. So anyways, I thought it was a great discussion. It's always interesting to have a conversation with somebody who's clearly an expert in their field, well-versed and well-read in this area. Because it just makes for an interesting conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. So that is all I've got this week. Stay tuned for more. I think over the next coming episodes, we have some discussions around alternatives to health insurance. So a while back, we did the discussions with Davis and Dr. Rob Lamberts and a couple other folks in the direct primary space, the direct primary care space, and how those physicians themselves have kind of stepped away from traditional insurance and how that business model works, how the care works. And but one of the big things that we've mentioned in, I think, all of those conversations in passing was this idea of, okay, aside from the mechanics of the membership for the direct primary care, how do people that are trying to utilize these resources, utilize these providers, getting coverage for normal and traditional healthcare services? And some of that has been the idea of, okay, you couple direct primary care with like a high deductible catastrophic health insurance plan. So, the health insurance kicks in if you have cancer or something like that. One of the things that we've talked about in passing has been the idea of a health share. And myself personally, I haven't had health insurance in 6 or 7 years. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I don't know really if I would go back to health insurance unless it was a sweet, sweet deal. We've been really, really happy with our health share memberships that we've had over the years. So in the next episode, we talk with a leading health share company, kind of to discuss the idea of what is a health share, how is it different than health insurance, and the value creation that this group of organizations is hoping to bring to the healthcare industry. So look forward to that in the next episode or so. And if you like the show, head on over to iTunes. You can check us out there. But really what I want you to do, if you like the show, you find value in it, send it to one person or two people or 3 or 4. But I'm just going to say one person that you think would enjoy or benefit from the show. And it doesn't necessarily need to be this episode. Maybe there was an episode that we did last week or 2 weeks ago on commercialization of a healthcare innovation that you think is pretty interesting. or one of these episodes on direct primary care, and you want to share it with somebody, do that. Because, I was pushing a lot of times for people to, go leave a rating or review on iTunes, and that's cool. But really, the reason I'm doing this show is to get the idea out there, to spread the message, and to make impacts in individual people's lives, right? So if you know somebody that would benefit from this show, send them an episode. Just shoot them an email. Say, hey, here's a really cool episode on XYZ, and see if we can't build some committed listenership that way. So until the next time, folks, be safe, be healthy. I will talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Our hope is that you walk away from each episode informed, equipped, and empowered to push the boundaries in your own practice or business. We want to give you the tools to help you build strong, long-lasting relationships with your patients and clients, helping meet their goals, improve their health, and achieve better outcomes. Learn more at www.rehabuppracticesolutions.com. We'll catch you on the next episode.